Hello, welcome to the library of the First Presbyterian Church of Alpena. It is Holy Humor Sunday, and on this day we take out a little bit of time during fellowship usually to gather together to tell jokes and celebrate this interesting day. And this interesting day has its roots actually theologically in the idea that when Christ was crucified and then Christ died, the devil came up and brought Christ to the pit. But the devil could not contain Christ because Christ was divine. And so Christ arose and ascended into heaven. So a trick, in essence, was played on the devil. Almost the idea was like a practical joke. So on the Monday after Easter Sunday, the ancients celebrated that day by great joyous events and basically playing practical jokes, and this became a tradition after a couple of years. And so, but it kind of lapsed, but it has been recently been revived, especially in this country. And probably in the 80s, 90s, it's become much more popular to have to celebrate this Holy Humor Sunday. We do it here in fellowship with each other. And so, since we can't be all together at once, I gathered together a bunch of jokes from people who contributed from the congregation, and I gathered some from other sources. And so we're going to have our little bit of fun here on Holy Humor Sunday. So to start off, I have a couple of jokes. The first one is from Sam, and he sent me this one. And a lot of these are very short, but very pithy and very worthy of a little laugh. So this was from Sam. He said, "I grilled a chicken, but it still would not tell me why it crossed the road." I love that one. That's a good one. Okay. And then from Karen Brindley, she wrote, "I know a group who was addicted to the hokey pokey, but they turned themselves around." Very good. Thank you, Karen. And then from Sharon is a visitor comes into the church, and this is his first Sunday there. And at the beginning of the service, the pastor says there will be a meeting of the board right after the service in the narthex. And so the service goes on, and the pastor gives his sermon, and then the service ends, and the pastor marches down the aisle, and he goes into the narthex, and the visitor shows up there and kind of stands next to him, but doesn't say anything. And the board members start to show up, and when they show up and they gather around, and that visitor just keeps standing there, and they're all wanting to start their meeting, but they didn't want to do it in front of this new person, this new visitor. And so the pastor kind of looked at him and asked him, he says, well, sir, we're about ready to have a board meeting. He says, "Yeah, that's why I'm here." He says, "No, this is a board meeting of the church." He says, "Yeah, you said this was a meeting of the board. Well, I'm here." So so we got a few video contributions as well, and this one's from Angela. Take it away, Angela.
Hi everyone, I have a joke for you. A priest, a minister, and a rabbit walk into a blood drive. The rabbit says, "I think I might be a typo."
Thank you, Angela. That was great. I enjoyed that one. Next, I want to do another joke from Sharon, and this one's called "The Hand of God," and I'm going to read this one. Little Philip was walking home in the rain with his mother following Sunday worship. It finally stopped raining, and as they rounded a corner to their surprise and delight, appeared a vivid double rainbow in the sky. And the mother says, "Doesn't it look like an artist painted this rainbow?" She says, "I bet God painted it just for you." "Yes," replied Philip, "and God did it left-handed." His mother looked at him like, "Well, how could you know that God did it left-handed? What makes you think that?" And then Philip replies, "Well, we learned in Sunday school that Jesus sits on God's right hand." Thank you, Sharon. Now I have another one from Karen Brindley. So what is the best thing about Switzerland? I don't know, but the flag is a huge plus. If you have to be into heraldry and national flags in order to get that one, I think. But I thought that was a good one. And then Sam writes, a political science class was discussing the credentials required by every candidate who seeks to become President of the United States. All of the items seemed reasonable enough until the instructor explained that every president has to be a natural-born citizen of the United States. And one student complained that the rule wasn't fair. And she argued that it discriminates against people who were brought into the world by C-section. Thank you, Sam. Thank you for that. Okay. Now we have a joke, and this one was sent in by Ruth, and it's a very personal joke, I think, to her, and I really enjoy this one. So take it away, Ruth.
What kind of man was Boaz before he got married? He was ruthless.
And now I would like to introduce you to a book that's been in my library for a while. It's called Holy Humor, and it's by Cal and Rose Samra. It's an excellent book. I have not read the whole thing myself because it's a compilation of humor that Cal and Rose put together over the years. And this was originally in the library of Harv and Beth Bowen, who went to the last church I was at Harbor Beach, Michigan, and very, very nice people. So he contributed this they contributed this to my library. And there's some really, really good stuff in here, I think. First, I would like to read this one. This is, why did the Israelites take 40 years to wander in the desert before they got to the Promised Land? I'll give you a second to think about that one. Well, got the clock going on. Why did the Israelites wander 40 years in the desert? Well, I'll give you a second to think about that one. Because even then, the men couldn't stop to get directions. So, yes. And another one that I thought was fun and interesting is a story that was by humorist Charles Lane of Franklin, Tennessee. And he tells this story. Doris Lane, Charles's wife, invited some people to dinner. And at the table, she turned to her 6-year-old daughter and said, "Would you like to say the blessing?" "I wouldn't know what to say," the little girl replied. "Just say what you always hear your mother say," the mother said. And the little girl bowed her head and said, "Dear Lord, why on earth did I invite all these people to dinner?" The happiest Methodist in Tulsa. So says the church's slogan. Go to Will Rogers United Methodist Church. Yes, there is a Will Rogers United Methodist Church named after the great American humorist and FMC member Larry Jacobson, also a humorist, is the pastor, or at least he was in 1996 when this book was published. The church recently celebrated its 50th year jubilee So we're way beyond that. So add 25 to that or thereabouts, 24 to that, I guess. As might be expected, Will Rogers Church members have a lot of fun. We do laugh a lot, says Reverend Jacobson. Commenting on Rogers' famous remark, I never met a man I didn't like, Associate Pastor Terry Ewing suggested that the church slogan ought to be, we are the folks that Will Rogers never met. I thought that was a cute little story. Okay, so I've got one more contribution of the video nature, and this is from Scott. And take it away, Scott.
3 ministers, a Presbyterian, Episcopalian, and a Baptist, decided to go fishing one Saturday. They take their boat about a half a mile from the dock and have a good discussion while waiting for the fish to bite. Suddenly, the Presbyterian says, wouldn't you know it, I left my thermos of coffee in the car. I'll be right back, and gets out of the boat and walks to shore. The Episcopalian announces that he left his fishing license in the car, and if the game warden came by, he didn't want to be caught without it. So he gets out of the boat and walks to shore. The Baptist, not wanting to be outdone, says he forgot his lunch. He'll be right back. He steps out of the boat and sinks to the bottom. As he surfaces, spitting and sputtering, the Presbyterian asks the Episcopalian, do you think we should tell him where the rocks are?
Thank you, Scott. Enjoyed that one. Thank you so much. Now, since we kind of started out with theology, I wanted to end with some theology, and this is one of my favorite jokes. This was one that went around in seminary all the time, and it says, Jesus said, "Who do you say I am?" And the theologians surrounding him said, "You are the eschatological manifestation of the ground of our being, the charisma in which we found the ultimate meaning of our interpersonal relationship." And Jesus says, "What?" That's a seminary joke if I ever heard one. So that's one of my favorites. And then actually my actual favorite is about a pastor and his wife who are walking in the woods. And since my wife and I go hiking quite a bit, one's near and dear to my heart. And I did tell this one last year, so if you remember it, I'm sorry. But anyway, so pastor goes walking in the woods with his wife, and as they're walking along, they talk about, well, what they would do if they happen to see a bear come along. And the wife says, well, I guess we just both have to run. And whichever one of us is slowest, the bear is going to probably get. And the pastor's thinking, well, I'm probably faster than she is, so I'm pretty safe on this hike. So as they're walking along, they see a bear. And so they both look at each other, and then they start to hightail it. And the pastor, as they're running along, he gets a little bit ahead of his wife, but he's not looking at his feet, and he trips over a log. And his wife jumps over the log and keeps on running. And he's looking back at her, and then he looks at the bear, and he's thinking, and the bear's just bounding up, foot upon foot, leg over leg, and coming right at him. And he looks at the sky, and he folds his hands and says, "Dear Lord, just grant me this prayer. Lord, make that bear a Christian." And as the bear bounds up, he stops right in front of him and puts his front paws on the log and folds them together himself and says, "Dear Lord, thank you for what we are about to receive. Amen." Oh yeah. Now this last little thing is from my wife. This is her personal request that I do this, and so anyway, it's my famous, actually it's not so famous, thumb trick that I learned a long time ago. And this is how it works. So I can pull off my thumb. And I can do it multiple times. And then it just comes right back up. And that's the final thumb trick. So what I'd like to do is, if we will pray us out of Holy Humor Sunday. Lord, in times of crisis, help us to look on the lighter side of life. Amen. Thank you for being with us today on this Holy Humor Sunday. I hope you got a chuckle or two out of this video and make it feel like, we all did get together again on this for fellowship on this Sunday. Amen.